Welcome everyone to episode 373 of Just Joshing. I'm your host, Joshua Pendelarosco. I write stuff and podcasts too, and today, Miranda returns to the podcast. I haven't had Miranda on the show since the very beginning, so it was really cool to have her return, see what she's learning in her writing journey, and talk about her latest book. And Miranda's just a cool person, and it's always a pleasure to have her on the show. You're going to start noticing this week that I'm going to be supporting Jim Jackson's latest campaign, Kickstarter campaign, Prairie Gothic. It's an anthology campaign. You're going to start seeing ads and things of that going forward, and the Kickstarter will be launching very, very soon. So definitely, guys, stay tuned for more details. This to me is a bit of a challenge. I'm taking a crash course in marketing, even though this lasts a little bit, just due to my own work. But taking on this little challenge is going to be a lot of fun for me as well. So if you guys want to support Jim, go do so. Jim is an amazing author, storyteller, musician, performer, public speaker, so definitely support his stuff. Okay, let's just get to the conversation, shall we?
Something wicked this way comes. Prairie Gothic is a new collection of psychological horror stories set on the vast Canadian prairies by up-and-coming talents. And we need your help. By contributing to Prairie Gothic through Kickstarter, you can unlock special swag, exclusive contributor-only events, and even have a song written about you. Visit kickstarter.com/profile/prairie soul to find out more and see what's waiting for you in the wide open spaces.
I'm just turning the recorder on. I don't remember if you remember the last interview from a long time ago, but I said this, I think, then too. If you have anything incriminating you'd like to say, make it good.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I will make sure to keep that in mind.
Okay. That's a very interesting way to plead the fifth. Okay, so that's good. I plead the fifth. How you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How you doing?
I'm on the adventure of a lifetime kind of right now, and you seem to be with it too. Yeah, from what I can tell.
Yeah. Wild ride. Life is a wild ride right now, actually.
That's good.
I think life is always a wild ride. Wouldn't you agree?
It should be. I think.
Yes.
I think it should be. So I'll mention my wild ride, and we can talk about your wild ride afterwards. So yeah. I have 5 months of rent saved up right now. Next week I'll have 6, and then I got a month basically to wait for some paperwork because I just moved out to BC from Alberta. And once all that clears up, I can walk away from my job and pursue what I want to pursue, and not worry about it for 6 months.
And how amazing does that feel? Awesome.
Actually, it kills me because right now I'm in that point where I have to wait like another month, and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
It's driving me crazy, and because I really want to like just go, but I'm also I've hit that wonderful point too where I don't care anymore in a good way. Like I don't care about the day job anymore. I don't care about like. I'm going through the day-to-day emotions right this minute, but I also know that my time for doing that is coming to an end very shortly. So it's like, it makes it bearable, but it's also you're like, I want to get there, and it's kind of where I'm at, right? And so my only question, I'm not sure what's going to happen next. But I'm not really worried about what happens next. I came out here with yeah. Well, I did something like this a long time ago, about 10 years ago, and I got my ass kicked. So when I first got out here, and especially in Vancouver, like you do see like there is a big homeless population here. So there was a moment there where I was like, "Are you sure you're doing the right thing?" But on the flip side, it's like, well, if not now, it's never. And that's really it. Like, life is really, it's now, it's never. It's not now or never, it's now, it's never. Make a choice.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yep. Exactly. It's funny you should say that because that's the background or like the theme of my cell phone. It says now or never.
Yeah.
And it literally glows and blinks at me all the time. It's so fun.
So one of my favorite songs right now is from a video game. It's called Rivers in the Desert. The first line is, "It's now, it's never," and I got to make my decision.
Right.
It's the final boss battle in the music in the entire game, which is just like it's a badass song, and it's just like it's amazing. It's an amazing song. It pumps you up, and it's been in my head for like I said, I've been playing the waiting game for the first few months out here, but I'm ready, and now I'm going to go out and I'm going to knock it out of the park. So
that's exciting.
Yeah. So
that's very exciting.
Yeah, and as for you, you are at book number 3.
Book number 3, yeah, good things come in 3, they say, or so I say. So it's big for me. I'm very happy that this trilogy is over, and all the learning that has come from it has been astronomical, and all the opportunities that have come from it are amazing. I've met some really wonderful people from all over the globe, so it's like it's almost surreal to me, and I don't want it to end, but alas, all good things come to an end, and everything is temporary. So next week, Friday, I actually have my launch party. So I'm situated in Manitoba, Canada. And I'm hosting a launch party at a local cafe bar type place. It's called Fourth Cafe. It's a little hipster cafe in an old historical building. It's absolutely beautiful and characteristic, and I'm hoping to have a good turnout to come and celebrate with me. And I'm going to read from my books, and I'm going to make people laugh, maybe a little people cry. I'm probably going to cry because I'm an emotional person. So it's going to be so much fun. And this is honestly like the cherry on top of a perfect Sunday is going to be next Friday.
That's awesome. Congratulations, first and foremost. That's by the time this airs, your party will have probably been long gone. But that all said, probably.
That's okay.
Yeah. That all said, that's an accomplishment, and you should be very proud of yourself. And I actually know that I think the question I really want to ask, I don't know if you remember our first interview.
I do. I don't think I remember what we spoke about specifically.
Yes, but okay. But it's been about 4 years.
I know, it's been a while.
I know. We both have gone in our own directions. Right now I'm at over 300 episodes. So just like I started, you were near the beginning of this, and so my journey has gone there. But I know that I'm a different person than who I was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you? What's the biggest difference between that than?
I learned how to breathe. Very simply put. I know that sounds super hippy-dippy and like, what on earth is she talking about? But I honestly think over the last 5 years or 4 years, the biggest change is that I used to literally vibrate, like whether that's energy or just I was always shaking or moving or doing something. So I was vibrating at such a high rate. And then I burnt out, and I got sick, and it was like not the funnest brick wall to hit running at 100 miles an hour. So then it was like, okay, girl, you got to figure out how to get through this, and again, that kind of all came through the 3 books and the last 4 to 5 years, and so now when I look back, and it's like you are in such more like you're vibrating at a lot more of a calmer vibration and a calmer pace. You find I have found balance, or I found the understanding of balance within all aspects of my life, and understand that it's kind of this balancing act to maintain balance. That's a lot of words. It's like a pendulum. So it's kind of this always self-assessment, and through that, breathing, self-awareness has been a huge, I guess, not trophy, but accomplishment over the last 4 or 5 years for me personally.
So, sounds like it's more of when to be certain ways is what you like, the discipline yourself, like you're like at first it sounded like you do whatever all of us do, like when you're really excited about something, you're going and you're anxious and you care about every little thing, and as you've gotten older, hopefully wiser, hopefully
a little bit,
maybe right, as you've gotten a little wiser, you've come to realize that it's not really about that. It's just about actually being smart enough to let things happen. And if you must, and again, you're still anxious, you're still excited, but it's like, I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah, and it's like, how much energy are you going to put to the anxiety of this? Or how much energy are you going to be putting into, like, being present and enjoying the moment, right? It's like whatever you want, truly want deep down subconscious, that's where you're focusing your energy on, and that's what's going to happen. So, I mean, like, in tough situations or situations where we're forced to grow a lot, right, those aren't necessarily the easiest ones, but they're the ones that give us that validity and that weight moving forward, and that foundation, and where we learn to move forward, and learn from our mistakes.
And sometimes they're not even necessarily mistakes. It's just we grow through adversity, and that's just like all of us do. We all have to look ourselves in the mirror and face the wall and see who we are in those moments. That's how we discover who we are. And like I said, I'm going through a growth period right now. You've gone through a major growth period with 3 books and 4 years, and you're like, well, I'm ready for what's next, whatever next is for you, right? But I mean, through that whole process, you struggled, and that's doing anything in this life. That just seems to be the magic ingredient: adversity.
Yeah, I mean, would you really appreciate it if it was just handed to you? Like, I really want to sit on a gold toilet. I don't want to own a gold toilet. I just want to sit on a toilet. And if somebody was like, oh, you can come sit in mine, I'd be like, oh, that was anticlimactic. But it's like, if I have to work my butt off and go through the successes and struggles and losses and wins to get to a point where I can put myself in a situation to sit on a gold toilet, I'm going to be present in that moment, and I'm going to thoroughly enjoy it and relish that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, when something is struggle, or when you struggle with something, or it's not the easiest thing to obtain, 300 podcast episodes is huge. As you may know, I started my own podcast recently with Jenna Green, and it's called Quill and Ink Podcast for Book Lovers, and it's so much fun, but it's so much work, and then 300 of them, like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, man, that is almost as many days as there are in the year.
I'll be there in about 10 weeks. Actually, I'm at 334 has just aired. I interviewed my first streamer. Like,
So, like, it's such an accomplishment. And there's, like, how many times were you up late and you accidentally rendered your podcast a little bit incorrect? Again. Like, it's just like, you're so strugglesome. But then when you look back and you're like, man, 365 podcasts, like, that's just around the corner. And I think that's when we look back, like, the most important thing is to look back and take note of the positive. Learn from the negative, but take note and appreciate the positive.
Oh, this podcast has been a big blessing to me. I get to meet incredible people from all over the world. I've talked to legends. I've talked to people just getting started. I've talked about glitter. I've talked about PTSD. It's everybody's a little different, and I love it, right? And I've learned so much from every one of my guests, including you.
Yeah, it's knowledge is power, man, and if you're open to having conversations about honest, raw feelings, no matter the situation, the scenario, the people involved, your feelings are your feelings, and they manifest and come out in similar ways to everybody, right? You strip away the scenario, you strip away all the other stuff, and you're left with feelings. We're able to relate and open up, and then you have an opportunity to see different perspectives. When you have different perspectives, you see more perspectives, right? And it gives you a lot more peace to know that you're not alone in tough situations.
It also makes me a little bit less of an egomaniac, because I realize that the world does not revolve around me, and it's actually.
I thought it did. I mean, around me. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, like, see, here's the thing. As a writer, you actually make all the. Although sometimes we're definitely conduits to what we're putting on the page, by and large, we do have a lot of say with what makes the final round. What story, whatever story we put out there, whatever presentation we put out there for people to see, we have a lot of say in it. It's our world in our head. So there's a little bit of, so we all are on some level a little bit of megalomaniacs, right? Just a little bit. I mean, you need to be, right? I mean, you are. I mean, it does take a little audacity to go, I'm writing something worthwhile that someone will pay for, right? There's a little audacity in that. On the same token, I'm not saying you don't deserve to be paid for it. Frankly, you're putting the blood, sweat, and tears into the book. You should be paid for it. That all said, it's really easy when you're doing something that self-exploratory, because every book I feel is a bit of self-exploration of the author in some way.
Of course.
Right, big time. So when I do a podcast, I get to hear other people's stories, right? Right. So
it's the best.
Yeah, it totally is, right? Yeah, you get to hear their stories, and then you're like, so I'm not the here-all and end-all. There's a whole world that goes on out there beyond me, and I have to admit this. It's kind of forced me to try to be a better person each and every time I do a conversation, because you have to be open. And you have to acknowledge that, you know what, you don't have all the answers. You may not be right. And not in like this negative connotation. It's just like we all go through our own journeys in life, and we all find our own answers. So who am I to tell you how to live your life? I don't see you hurting yourself. Now, if you're hurting yourself, maybe I go, okay, Miranda, maybe you need to stop.
Right. Then, yeah, exactly. Then there's a conversation that needs to happen, but you embrace everybody to make their own choices and their own decisions, and if it's somebody that you care about and they're doing something not clear-minded for whatever reason, they're in love or angry or anything between, again, like it stems down to a conversation like, let's go have a cup of tea, and let's talk about things that are difficult, and whenever those conversations stem up in my life, it always starts with, well, when this happened to me, I found myself in this type of situation feeling this type of way. Do you know what I'm feeling like? Knowing that, yeah, they should be able to relate because they're in a similar situation. And I want to open up that door to talk to them about it. I don't want to tell them what they're doing is wrong. I just want to have a conversation, because when we have conversations, the light bulbs can flicker that we didn't even know existed. And what I say to you one way, you can perceive and interpret a billion different ways, right? So it's, having a conversation about deep things and is always great, but it has to come down to being open and honest and being kind to yourself and being kind to the ones that you care for.
Being kind in general is actually a good thing, I find.
It makes you a happier person.
Absolutely. But I mean, even to the people you don't like it's actually. So before I came out to BC, I actually went to my previous, like where I was previously working in my day job, and I just made a point to thank as many people as I can, even the people who didn't like me.
Right.
It's amazing how powerful thank you is. It really, really is. It breaks barriers down. I actually think if you mean them, thank you and I love you are the strongest two things a human being can say to someone.
Exactly. And you know what? I can tell you that I love you and mean it, and not mean that I want to get married to you and live happily ever after. I tell my mother I love her. Mm-hmm. I tell my cousins that I love them. Why wouldn't I tell my friends that, or somebody that I care for deeply, without having them completely slap on a label to this, right? Yeah. Love comes in all different types of capacities, and so does kindness. Yeah. And you're right. There's nothing more powerful than exuding those two things.
Yeah. So. I guess I have another big question for you. So we talked about who you are, like you've learned to relax, right? Which is a good thing. Relaxing is very good. Very, very good. So let's go with the other big well, I have two big questions for you. I'll go the easier one first. What's next for you? You've written your trilogy, so what do you want to do now?
Oh, I am coming up with another trilogy. Because my research.
Dang it.
Huge undertaking, and I'm so looking forward to it. Like, it is going to keep me busy probably 6 hours a week for 6 months.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's going to be another trilogy, and then once my research is done, and then I'll write out the outline of all 3 novels, and then basically write the first one, and then publish one right after the other type thing. So I got a map and pull out at once.
So you're a big outliner with what you do? Like you just outline your stuff when you work?
No. First series was very biographical. So it was biographical, and it was somewhat chronological with just events that were happening in my life. So I kind of just winged it by knowing this is what I want to do, and this is what I want in my books. This series is going to be a little bit different. This past year, I was diagnosed with 2 conditions called endometriosis and adenomyosis, and they're incurable and intreatable conditions of the reproductive system. Like one of the most painful, silly diseases, conditions, whatever they are, you can get. Like, it just causes so much problems and upheaval. So when I was diagnosed with this, I had no idea what this was, and I felt so alone and terrible, and I looked fine on the outside, but my insides were tearing me apart. So it was very mentally conflicting and challenging to deal with. And then I started to do more research about it and talk to more people, and realized that it affected about 1 in 10 women worldwide. And that statistic just it made me so sad, because I'm an A-type personality. I was able to get my diagnosis really quickly, and that was 2 years. I worked 2 years. I was very sick for 2 years before I got that diagnosis, and the average diagnosis time is 7 years, which means there's like millions of women around the world that are suffering for almost a decade of their life with extreme pain and nausea and bloating and a bunch of really other crappy problems that are consistent. So I'm like, girls, I'm gonna write us a story. But how can I really honestly write a good story from my own point of view? My journey was very, very different. Like our journeys as authors and as podcasters, like, sure, we start off with the same goal, but the journey that we take to get to where our goals are is so vastly different. So I've set out to interview 100 women from around the world, and I want to break it into thirds. So women in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, and each of the books are going to depict one character in their 20s, in their 30s, and in their 40s. And so say I interview 30-something women in their 20s, bits and pieces of their story will create a character for one of my novels. And each of the women are going to be interconnected within each of the books as well, a little bit, just because the community is tight-knit and it's strong and it's supportive and it's loud and it's beautiful. And I wanted to give a voice to it. But like my Chin Up, Tits Out series, I wanted to spin it positively, because everything you hear about these conditions are so negative and terrible, because it really is. But with it, there's room for silver linings, and there's room for choices to be happy, to be positive. And so I really want to explore that, but to explore it fairly, I got to talk to women. So I'm going to talk to 100 of them from as many different places as I can capture.
Okay, that's a big. Okay, that makes sense. You're doing a really big undertaking. So yeah. I'm gonna ask you a personal question. If you don't want to answer, I totally understand.
No, that's fine. Open book.
Yeah. Is this your first major illness?
My first major illness, personally, yes. My ex-husband was a cancer patient, drug addict, and had mental illness. So I dealt with illness and disease extensively from a caregiver point of view. I have not really been a patient in my life, except for the odd hospital visit from some clumsy or sport-induced injury as a child. I was pretty healthy as a kid as well. So, this is definitely the first time I've been struck with something this heavy for my own body.
Okay. So I can see why this. So this is almost like. So there comes a point in everybody's life. This is one of the deeper things. Some morning. I mean, I don't know if this is how you took it, but this is like when I went through. Some of my own struggles. There are points in my life where I realized that I'm mortal. I'm not invincible anymore. I never was invincible, but now I just realize I'm not invincible. I'm not invincible, and one day I won't be here anymore. And that's a very powerful realization. Right? Was this kind of what happened to you here? Or
no, you know what? It came to, I'm never going to be able to accomplish the things that I wanted to accomplish in my life. And so what I mean by that is, here's a perfect example of how I hit a brick wall running at 100 miles an hour. I work a full-time job. I absolutely love my career. I write books. I have a podcast. I share my condo as an Airbnb guest. I'm booked about 95% of the year. I have maybe 20, 30 nights to myself throughout the year. So I'm very busy, and I also sit on a board of directors as a secretary. So I'm pulled in all these different directions. I absolutely love all of them. I work out, I run at lunch, I come home and I work out in the evening, whether that's yoga or strength exercises. I ran a half marathon with my dad, and then a few weeks later, I had so much internal pain that I was unable to walk. And I was like, this is so weird. And then within a couple more weeks, I was missing work, and I wasn't able to even physically. I was like, I can't move. I don't know what's going on. And that the disease presented itself very abruptly in my life. We don't really know why, but it was just such a, you can't work out anymore. I was sitting at board meetings hunched over and green, and they're like, you're okay? I'm like, can I just call in? I don't want to be here. My Airbnbs were patient and so kind when I was stuck in the bathroom, or heaven forbid, the few times where I'm like, I'm going to the hospital, the house is yours, have fun. There was just so much that my life literally got flipped upside down, and I thought to myself, and then it all kind of percolated on my 30th birthday. My 30th birthday, I felt so sorry for myself. So sorry for myself that I was like, I can't even believe it. Like, how can my life get any worse? I'm divorced. My reproductive system is broken and not good. Like, we need to return it. And I can't even do any of the things that I want to do. And I have lovely support from my family and my friends. And they were like, can you sit down and look yourself in the mirror and don't look away until you've actually assessed all of the accomplishments that you have accomplished in the last decade, and then don't look away until you're happy with that. And I'm like, oh, seriously? Like, I have to go sit in my own poo until... Okay, great. So that's what I did. I sat in front of the mirror. I have multiple mirrors in my house, so like I moved around, and I'd sit and I'd coach myself into being okay, and then I'd sob and, oh my God, I'm going to die alone, and oh my God, I'm never going to be successful, or like there was everything. And then by the end of the day, I was like, okay, I think I'm okay now. I'm okay now. So it was, I don't know what I had to do, but it's since letting all of that go. I have a diagnosis. It took a while to get that, and I've managed to find a little bit of balance and maintenance within these conditions. So, finding that has been really helpful at cruising at a more positive place in life.
Well, so it sounded like you just need to deal with your grief.
Yeah, it was very much a grief of like it was like a loss of life at a pace, and it was the loss of my life at the pace that I thought I could deal.
Yeah.
But it really taught me to like, girl, you need to assess yourself. Like when something happens, assess. When an opportunity arises, assess it. Like it very made me way more better, but through it, it's like you relearn how to listen to your body, and then you coming to the realization that you should know your body better than anybody out there. No doctor, no scientist, no partner, no mother or father. Like, genetics, cool, but the person that should know your body more than anybody else should be you. And that is a tough thing to accomplish. Like, that's tough to look in the mirror and sort your own stuff out inside and out, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, everything.
It takes, so a wise person I knew once said that it takes a strong person to confront everything you feel on the inside. It takes a wise person to, once you do that, to let it go.
Let it go. You can't hate yourself. You can't judge yourself for the decisions that you made in the past. You simply assess them, accept them, and when you get faced with a similar situation in your future, you go back to that second and go, okay, let's be wise here. Let's make a conscious decision to try a different or an alternative way than when you were forced or faced with this decision the last time. It just makes you think things through a little bit more. Stopping thinking, smelling the roses is never a bad thing.
No, but it also makes you see it differently too. It's no longer the end of the world obstacle you knew it as when you first dealt with it. You see it differently because you're a different person, and you're like, okay, so I've been here before. This sucks, but there's a but now. Whereas first time when you were go through it, it's like, I've been here before. This really sucks. Now you know there's more to it. Now it's like, I've been here. This is amazing. Let's go.
Yeah, I've been here. It was worse the first time.
Yes.
I didn't know what was going on. Now I know what's going on. So it's like, you don't need to panic. Like, put your big girl panties on and like, you're going to be fine. Life is, honestly, I was telling my mom this and she's like, you're crazy. I'm like, I walk through completely oblivious to struggles around reproductive stuff, and like it's a huge thing in women apparently. I'm learning.
Yes.
And I'm so completely unaware and naive about it. I didn't have issues when I was a teenager. And so now learning about it, I'm like, Mom, I said, I think because I was so completely unaware of certain things in my life that they come hitting me face first, and they're like, it's your turn to learn today.
Yes.
About this. And then you're faced with this new piece of yourself, and you're like, okay, it's time to learn here. And then this is maybe part of my life. And, I would have never expected to get married to somebody from a different continent, from Africa. I never, ever, 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 ever would I thought about it. I never would have thought I was divorced before I was 25 either.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to have kids and be done having kids by the time I was 30 and have like a little white picket fence and happily ever after, some kids and some dogs and like they show on the TV. But like that's just not life.
No, oh god, oh no. Television sugarcoats a lot of things. That's. But it's like television's the illusion. What you went through was very rare. By the way, just on a personal note, you're a badass. You're a real badass.
Thanks.
Yes, yeah, you're badass. It sounds.
I just want to know my friends.
Yeah, but it sounds like, especially like I don't know, like how recent was all this? If you don't mind my asking.
Oh no, not a problem. Well, long story short, I immigrated my ex-husband here. We started in 2007. He finally moved here in 2011. At the end of 2011, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, so cancer of the lymphatic system. It is treatable. We dealt with that for 13 months. The guy almost died on me like 17 times. Like he'd stop breathing. And it's just like there are so many crazy stories. Pick up my second book, you'll hear all about them.
Yes.
And then one day, he just decided that the smartest thing to do would be to walk out. And then he left. And you were like, what?
What the fuck?
What?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, did we not just, like, fight for immigration for 5 years? And then, like, did we not just try to keep you alive for a year? And now you're just being like, peace out, cheers, see you never.
Yeah.
See you always, but, like, not enough to stay. And I'm just like, what?
Well,
so, like, obviously that was destroying. But that happened in beginning of 2013. So it's been a minute.
It's been a minute. Hot minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, well, actually, he did you a favor, believe it or not.
Honestly, 150% people are like, oh, I'm so mad. But I'm like, yeah, okay. So he kind of left a disaster. Oh, poo-poo. Everybody has to go through a disaster at some point in their lives. You fast forward 7 years later, I have a trilogy of books that have sold legitimately all over the world, like on all four corners, like all of the continents. Well, not the North Poles and the South Poles, but like all the other continents. I've sold books on. And it's like, sure, I might have tail-coated on our failed love story, our tumultuous, beautiful failed love story, but, you know, it's my version of my own love story. And that's really where the book 3 takes us, is like, sure, everybody goes through and falls in love, but it's like, what happens once you fall out of love? How do you fall back in love with yourself? Or how do you continuously love yourself? So whoever outside you love, you can continue to love them wholly. You know, it's self-love is huge. So important.
But I mean, the other part too is, I mean, he walked away. And you know what? As shitty as that was in that moment, the reality is, with what you've been through, like, you're a strong woman. Like, you're a very strong woman. And the thing is, if the things and usually someone to become as strong as you are, it usually requires that you go through a lot of turbulence. It's just that's just, again, adversity builds us. That's just the way it is. Right?
Exactly. It's simply put, but it's true. It's like, you know, you go through tough situations, it builds you, it characterizes you, it makes you stronger, and I appreciate that, you know, like I know that if he wouldn't have walked away, my loyalty and my dedication would have continued to take care of somebody who didn't even want to be alive in the first place, or who would have just continued to take advantage of
Exactly.
everything that I was trying to do to make him happy and to make him healthy and to just love him, right? Like, it would just empty me. It was emptying my life cup.
Yeah, but and also, I mean, you at some point you might have resented him, and this way, at the very least, there are lots of people that are married that are miserable in their marriages because they feel like they're stuck. Right. And the thing of it is, right. Sure, I'm not going to give anyone love advice because Lord knows I'm not qualified. But one of the things I've learned in this life is if you feel trapped and imprisoned, you never want to have a spouse or a family member be your jailer. You never want to feel that way, right? Ever. So that's why I say he did you a favor, because he didn't let you jail yourself. He let you free, which, you know, it's not the way it wasn't necessarily the kindest way to do it, but there's no kind way out either, you know. So
no. Like,
yeah.
there isn't, like, you know, it's funny. I should say I had an Airbnb guest stay with me, and he was going through a separation himself, and he's like, you know, just, you don't speak up for yourself about little things up front, and then those little things start to fester, and then those little things start to turn into big things, and then at that point you haven't said it from the get-go, so you can't say it now, and then you start to resent that person for doing something, and they have no hot clue that it's driving you absolutely mad. And then they start to think, well, if you don't love me anymore, you don't think I'm pretty anymore. No, actually, if you just would put your makeup away and not leave it lying all over, like, you know, like, it all comes down. He goes, I fell out of love because I never spoke up about the little things.
Yeah.
You know, the little things about not putting the makeup away. And he goes, and then it came resentful. And then it was, I completely lost who I was because I felt guilty. So I just kept saying, yes, dear, we'll do whatever you want, even though I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And now I feel guilty, and now I feel trapped, and now I'm unhappy. And now, oh my God, I'm 30 and I'm getting a divorce.
Yeah. Which.
And oh my God, I've heard the story 100 times. You know, like, it's so unfortunate that it's repetitive, but we're also not alone in it, right?
Well, no, I mean, we're just following our. I mean, the one positive is that, you know what, people have been down this road before, and it's a mistake. It's a mistake we all make. I mean, even not just in, like, relationships that way, but in all our relationships, like, we all have. I wish I'd spoken up on some things with some people sooner than later, because
exactly.
right. I wish I had. Now I don't have that problem, which drives some people crazy, but that's okay. I can live with that. But
you tell people you're either going to love how I communicate with you, or you're not. You're going to
actually, I mean, I'm even past that point. So I fixed my teeth about 2 years ago, and when I came out of it, like, there was a mourning period for me when I fixed my teeth, because I had to acknowledge why they broke, right, and what part of me was broken still. And when I did that and came out of it, I was like, you know, part of this issue, and I realized this during that year, was I let myself be treated a certain way. And when I fixed the teeth, I just wasn't going to do that anymore. And yeah, right. And and a friend of mine on a previous podcast said this: you don't apologize for who you are anymore. And that's it. I'm past apologies. This is who I am. I'm going to do my best. But if you don't like it, fuck it. Like, I'm not here for you. I'm the one that has to wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and like what they see. Right? And if I can't do that, then I need to make a change. And that's like I've hit that point. I'm unapologetic. I'm gonna be frightened when I get to 50. I think I looked at my dad and what he's like, and my grandmother, what she's like. I'm like, oh God, I got there faster. Shit.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
You're so funny. I got that faster.
It's like, no, like that's it. I got there faster, so I can only imagine what I'm going to be like when I get to 50 and 60 and 70. I mean, I barely give a fuck now, and and I mean that, and it's a glorious thing. That moment where you realize that you just come to a point in your life that you realize that very little actually matters, and not like in this negative, we're all gonna die kind of way. Just like, honestly, there isn't very much in this life that you actually need. Now, so if that's the case, what do you love? Who do you love? What's important to you? That's it.
It's important. You're totally right. If I ever get stuck with something that I'm unhappy with, I always and it's a newer practice to me, and like you're at now is like I got here faster. Is I ask myself, say somebody really frustrates me at work, or whatever this scenario is, I ask myself, okay, hold on, how do I feel right now? Do I feel okay? Does my body hurt? Does my mind hurt? Okay, my mind hurts. Is it because it's my ego? I always assess if I'm pissy with something. I assess, is it really worth my time? Not even my time, my energy.
Yes.
My energy to feel anything negative right now. If somebody doesn't email me back what I want, if I say I want this and they say no, and I want to stomp around and scream, that's a whole boatload of energy, of negative energy, that I refuse to expend on somebody or something that's not worth it. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth it to stomp around because somebody said no to you? No, it's not. You find another solution then. Yeah. Simply put.
Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm human. There are some days, like I said, I'm about to leave my day job, my current, where I'm at now, right, where I am at now, I've outgrown it, and that's just all there is to it. I've outgrown it, and so I'm patient because again, I don't know what's next for me, so I'm trying to do the right thing and be as ready for whatever comes my way next as I possibly can be, but I mean, you can only do that for so long. And that's before it's okay, what am I doing, right? So I gave myself a time limit. And actually, upon reflection yesterday, I realized I'm going to give myself even less time because it's I'm ready to go. I'm pretty much ready to go, right? So I have I have 2 last promises to keep, and once they're kept, that's it. There's no reason to stick around anymore.
Right.
Right. So so for me, it's okay. I know this is a flaw, but is this because I'm not the same person anymore? Or is it because this is stupid? Sometimes it's still, this is stupid. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes it's right. Sometimes it's, this is stupid. But sometimes it's just okay, I'm just not that guy anymore. And I never was that guy. And
yes.
Right, and that's it, right? So it's been an interesting experiment just to maintain my patience. For me right now, that's what I'm learning is patience. And
patience is a virtue.
Sometimes though, it's a bitch.
Oh, it is. It's why can't it is what it is. I'm starting to learn. My mom's very impatient. I love her to pieces, but she goes, Haley, she goes, okay, so I want to ask you about all your agenda stuff for the book launch. So she starts to talk to me about my book launch stuff. I'm like, Mom, I haven't gotten there yet. She's like, well, why? I'm like, because it's not time for me to be there yet. So I was meant to ask my brother if he would help me. And so we nonchalantly talked about it, but I hadn't officially asked him. And it's I didn't really want to ask him what I needed him to do until I fully understood what I needed him to do. And so my mom, she goes, well, I'm going to call him right now. So she calls him, and she's like, oh, so your sister wants to ask you a question. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? I was like, I was going to call him tomorrow.
Yes.
And show him the agenda. I'm like, this, and this. And she's like, well, now this is done, and you don't have to worry about it tomorrow. I was like, well, no, but I still have to contact him and still need to send him the agenda. And she's like, whatever. I'm like, well, do you feel better? She's like, yes. I'm like, okay, well, then that's all that matters then. You're good.
I think that comes with age. I find again, I'm approaching 40, and I'm finding that as I've approached this age, I'm like, I am not as patient about some things as I was when I was younger. I just think your BS meter goes down the toilet as you get older. Just.
Oh yeah, you don't want to deal with any BS. Heck.
Yeah.
No. It's the matter. It's mine right now. My thing right now is only take on a thought, an action, one at a time. Because we all can multitask 100%. I can talk, I can play on my cell phone, I can drive, and I can dance. I can chew gum and pat my tummy. Like, we can all multitask. Yes, we can. But, why? Why do we feel like we need to multitask? If I'm going to talk on the phone, I should probably just be sitting and talking on the phone and enjoying the conversation that I'm having. If I'm going to be planning a book launch and I'm working on the agenda, I'm focused on working on the agenda, and then once it's done, I'm going to share the agenda with everybody that it's involved in one swoop. I'm not going to piecemeal it. It's just not the way my brain works. But I do one job at a time, and then I move on to the next one, and I still stay productive, but I feel like I'm more present and I'm less stressed because I'm focused on only one item at a time versus 17.
It sounds like you have mastered the art of utilizing your time in a way that is most effective for you. Yes.
Most effective to me, what works for me may not work for the cat down the street, But, and it's a constant practice, and, daily choices, and, daily reminders that I set for myself. My phone tells me 3 times a day to think about something that I'm grateful for. And it's not I'm grateful for the roof over my head. No, it's I'm grateful for the weather being nice today because the sun is out and the sun makes me feel good and it's mild, so I can have my door open the whole day, and that fresh air makes, my lungs feel good, pure and strong. That's something that I feel grateful for. But if I say it out loud, or I say it to myself, or I write it out, then when I'm done saying what I'm grateful for, it brings so much more gratitude and joy because I actually took the moment to think about why I'm grateful for the sun being out today.
Yes. That gratitude is ultimately a thank you, and being thankful is a lot better than being anything else. Like I said, thank you is one of the most powerful 2 things you can say to someone and to the universe in general, or whatever you believe in.
What you put out there, you get back in abundance. You thank the universe every chance you get, or any moment you feel a moment of gratitude, you outwardly thank it. You think what hurt is it going to do it? Outside of people thinking you're maybe crazy, but people think
that's okay. I'm cool with people thinking I'm crazy. I kind of live kind of crazy, and yeah.
100%. I dance in my car. I drive a standard car. I dance. I don't look at the people next to me. Sometimes I can feel them notice that I'm dancing. I don't care.
Yeah.
My friend's like, well, what about him? What about the other people? I'm like, they're the ones that are distracted. I'm not. I said, my eyes are focused on the road. I'm just cruising to some tunes, and I'm enjoying my life. There is zero harm in that.
No, absolutely. No, that's it.
Don't it down when there are police officers around.
Well, slightly. You know what? You'd be surprised. Some of them might actually join you on the dancing. You never know. It really depends on the cop that day. But
I just don't want to be sorry, ma'am. Have you been drinking? I'd be like,
well, no,
I had a glass of wine.
No, so for me, today, so while I'm killing time, I yesterday I had the song "Lose Yourself" by Eminem was in my head pretty much the whole night. So they won't let us listen to music on the floor, so I'm like, okay, and I understand why, but doesn't mean music isn't in my head. So it's just you know what? I'm just dancing. I'm kind of just doing my thing, and I'm lifting heavy stuff, and doesn't matter. Doesn't faze me. Let's keep going. Let's keep dancing. Let's just do it. And you know what ends up happening sooner or later, this is what ends up eventually happening. The people around you actually, when at first they think you're nuts, but eventually they break, and then they start enjoying themselves a little bit more too.
Exactly. Another lifetime ago, I worked at a dealership, and one of my coworkers was like, "Oh my God, when I first met you, I thought you were so annoying. You're always bubbly and you're always positive and always like, hey, dude, how's it going? Oh my God, I want to give you a hug because today's a beautiful day and I'm so happy to be alive." And he's like, it was so annoying, but he's like, then you broke me. And now if you don't do that to me in the morning, I actually feel down. And I'm like, oh.
Aww.
He's like, no, but he's like, now I'm going to do it to the people that are around me. And I'm like, beautiful. So, like, it annoyed the crap out of him, and he was very vocal about it, and we had a good laugh about it. But, yeah, it's, you just got to do you and spread kindness, and you never know how much of an impact you're going to make on somebody else's day.
Exactly. Miss Miranda, I do think we have a good interview. But I had two last questions to do before we wrap this up. That's okay with you?
Yeah, of course.
So it's like working with Jenna. So I say that because she came to me at the last one, Words Collide, and she actually started her own little micro podcast as a result. So to see that it's evolved with you, that's kind of really cool. So how did that come about, and how much fun are you having?
Oh my God. Okay, so Jenna and I are like two peas in a pod, but like we're also like oil and vinegar, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Like, we mix so well, but we're so different. We laughed. We were on a conversation yesterday. She's like, okay, so like we were trying to like feel out our positions still, because we're quite new within our podcast. We just recorded episode 4 today.
Congrats.
And thank you. And so she's like, I want to be a little bit more straight edge, because she's like, you're just crazy and loud and funny. I flip my hair, right? And I was like, you want to play good cop, bad cop? She's like the interrogation style. I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, we gotta be like that, boys. We just have such a good connection, and we're a very interesting combination. So how did we start? So both of us are represented by Mickey Mickelson. I know you know who that is.
Yes, I do.
With Creative Edge. So we're both represented by him, and he is sponsoring the podcast. It's essentially his baby through Authors on the Air. And so he goes, guys, I want you to do a podcast, and you're going to do it with Jenna, and Jenna, you're going to do it with Miranda. And both of us were like, oh, okay, cool. Like, do you know how to do a podcast? She's like, no. Do you know how to do a podcast? No. I get interviewed on them all the time. Like, I don't interview people. And so through a couple of months of figuring it out and putting it all together, we started to interview guests later, like late in the year of 2019, so just a couple months ago. And we've had the opportunity to interview some pretty phenomenal people, and the more Jenna and I get to work with one another, the more we dive, and it's a fluid kind of, a partnership, and Mickey kind of nailed it on the head, putting us together that way. We have a lot of fun. She has her duties around the podcast, and I have my duties around the podcast, and we're simply growing together during this chapter. And you flash forward, a few months, I'm really excited to see where we're going to be.
Cool. That'd be fun. Maybe I should come on your show. I can make an ass myself there. I'm good at it.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, we can have some fun.
Yeah.
Like Jenna does the research part, because she's like a genius like that. I just make really bad jokes and do the tech stuff in the background.
That's cool. I do, like, I talk. Listen, I'm murdering people with giant cupcakes in my next novel. So I mean,
Oh my gosh, see, and like we would just have so much questions. I take things like on tangents, like earlier today when we were recording, I'm like, oh, so you suffer with shiny red ball syndrome, and she's like, yes!
Yes. Totally. So,
Oh, goodness gracious.
so here's the last question. This one's more serious. I think it's actually a good way to wrap this up.
Okay.
Congratulations on completing your trilogy.
Thank you.
What is the biggest thing you've learned?
To stay true to what I wanted. When we as authors decide to write a book. Self, I'm going to write a book. Yeah, you are. That idea, what that book idea is, stick with it. It's going to evolve, it's going to change, it's going to morph. Let it. But don't let the journey or the struggles, because you're going to have struggles. It's going to be tough. Your writing is solitary, so you're alone. And then when you share it, you're going to get opinions, whether they're good or bad, and that's going to take all of the feelings that you created all by yourself when you were alone and you were writing it, and it's just going to amplify those feelings. So just, it's hard to stick with that original voice inside your head that said, I'm going to write a book and this is what it's going to be about. Stick with it, stay true to yourself, stay determined, and stay focused and accomplish it. Because it's possible. Like, I'm spazzy. I choke on air. I fall up the stairs and trip on flat ground, and I somehow managed to write not one but 3 books. People ask me, I don't know how I did it. I drank a lot of wine. I cried a lot. I still do, but that's cool. I don't mind crying. I have an ugly cry and a pretty cry. It's not even a pretty cry. It's just this tear. It's really dramatic. But then the ugly cry is snot bubbles and hyperventilating. I'm you just gotta embrace it, man. And so that's what we're doing.
That's awesome. All right. What do you think, Miss Miranda? Do you think we got a good interview here?
I think we had a fantastic interview. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So let's wrap this up the right way here. Why don't you plug your book, plug your podcast, and plug where people can find you?
Yes, so you can find me at mirandao.com. O is OH. You can also Google search or search on any social media platform, Chin Up, Tits Out, or just plain up Miranda O. I'm everywhere and I'm quite easy to find. My podcast, Quill and Ink, a podcast for book lovers. You can find us on Authors on the Air Global Network on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, and you can also find us on SoundCloud. So that is me. And books, Amazon worldwide. Just Google, search up in Amazon, Chin Up, Tits Out, and you'll find all 3 of them there.
Excellent.
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
I've forgotten how much I enjoyed this conversation. Miranda is an amazing human being, someone I kind of want to have a drink with at some point, just to say, hey, yo, congrats on being just an awesome human being. And definitely check out her books. Chin Up, Tits Out's the first one. Her last one just came out. I'm kind of curious what Miranda's doing next. I wish her the best of luck on her podcast. I hope it's gone smoothly. Honest folks, I mean, hey, anything that supports art should be lauded and supported, and Miranda's done a great job. I hope I get to go on her show, actually. It'd be kind of nice to it's nice being a guest when I do get to be a guest. So I get to announce my next book next week. It's right, 2nd book. My goal is 3 books this year. With the 3rd book coming out in October, and another book coming out in January. That's right, I'm pretty crazy about this. There are things I have to do and there are sacrifices I have to make, but that's life. I'm in this to win it, and I'm going to win. And that's really all there is to it. And if you don't believe me, just watch me, because I can't. I couldn't have asked for a better debut at the Cloud Diver, but I want more. And I think everybody should want more with whatever they're going for, especially now. It's a new beginning, guys. We can be whatever we want to be. Good, bad, or indifferent. That choice is up to you and me. And that'll do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so in a number of different ways. You subscribe to it. I'm on pretty much every platform you can imagine. iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, a variety of other ones. I'm on iHeartRadio. I'm pretty much anywhere you look for Just Joshing, you will find me. And so go ahead, go do so. My book, The Cloud Diver, is out now. I did it myself. It's on Amazon right now. I'm about to put it on Kobo. I'll have the Kobo link up next week as well for people that want to do an EPUB over a Mobi, which is totally cool. That'll be up. My newsletter. Subscribe to it. This week I do it's a motivational newsletter. I'm going to be writing about the new world and new possibilities. So that's kind of what I'm going for. My webpage is being updated as we speak. My Twitter and Instagram is jpintellaresco. My Facebook page, Josh Pintellaresco, author podcaster. Come say hello. Thanks for listening. Tell people about it if you want. But either way, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Stay inspired out there, guys. Keep chasing your joy. And I'll see you guys next time.
Josh. Shush.